Hello, I am David Cochrane. I am the Research Director for the International Society for Astrological Research, and I am here in Istanbul, Turkey, with Oner Doser, who is doing fantastic, wonderful research on sunspots and solar flares and geomagnetic storms. So I'm interviewing astrologers who are doing cutting-edge discoveries and research, and this is cutting edge. So Oner, I'm just so excited to be here and to learn about your research.
We are so glad you're being here, and thank you very much for your coming. It's an honor for us.
And thank you very, very much. So we want to get into your research and the discoveries you're making about sunspots and solar flares. So the basic idea is that the positions of the planets can predict when there will be more sunspots and solar flares. That's the basic idea, right?
Yeah, that's the basic idea, yeah. I started to research on the topic actually beginning from 2008.
Okay.
And the first thing inspired me to do that investigation was John Nelson's studies on the subject.
Yes.
And it was 1950s. John Nelson was called to make investigation about from the RCA communications, by the way, about the short radio wave signals cut. And when he was looking for the source of these shortcuts in the radio wave signals, he found out that it was the planets around the sun, and he prepared some charts as we do today, but the sun of the center.
Yes.
And looking at the planets, he discovered or found out that squares, oppositions, and the conjunctions of the planets to each other were, this source of magnetic turbulences and disturbances and sunspots in the sun.
Exactly. So the amazing thing about John Nelson's work is, number one, he is not an astrologer.
Yeah.
He's an engineer working for RCA. I think it was in New York City.
Yeah.
And they're concerned about when transmission is not good, the radio transmission. So they said, find out why the radio transmission is not working. And he stumbles into this idea that when the planet positions are square to each other or opposition, from the sun's point of view, heliocentrically, then the sun gets disturbed, and that disturbs our atmosphere, and that disturbs the radio transmission.
Exactly.
So he discovers astrology.
Yeah, actually, he rediscovers.
Rediscovers.
He was saying that all these parasites actually in the radio signals, like parasites in our lives, because when we have much squares and oppositions and plus the conjunctions between the planets, we have parasites, some disturbances and turbulences in our daily life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in the economy, in the politics, and everywhere, astrologers are predicting some difficult events relying on these hard aspects.
Right.
And he was saying the same thing.
He says the same thing. Hard aspects bring challenges and difficulty.
Yeah.
Exactly what astrologers have been saying for thousands of years. And then other people start looking at this. Percy Seymour.
Percy Seymour from UT in 1990s, and he was saying almost the same thing. After the studies of Jane Blizzard from NASA.
From NASA?
NASA, yes.
Wow.
And she was saying the same thing, 90 and 180 degrees of the planets to each other when the sun is on the center was causing disturbances on the sun, and solar bursts, solar flares, and of course sunspots.
Right, right. So we want to see if this is really true, or I want to see if it's really true, because you've been studying it for over 10 years, and you've been reading all these books, you've been calculating the charts, you've been seeing the relationships not only to the occurrence of the sunspots, but to human activity. So when those sunspots occur, we get tornadoes, weather problems, economic changes, correct?
Economic changes. Actually, Russian scientist Tizhevsky studied on the subject in 1920s. He found out that human mass excitants are very much related with solar maximum phases of the
Wow.
sun. What is solar maximum actually? When we have much sunspots on the sun, and that means we are on solar maximum. When we have spotless days on the surface of the sun or less sunspots, that means we are in the solar minimum, as
Right.
we are in nowadays.
Right, right. So there's so much here. Number one, there's can we predict sunspots
Yeah.
at all and solar flares? Because scientists now, they have a general idea. There's an 11-year cycle.
Yeah.
So it'll go gradually up and then gradually down every 11 years. But they don't know exactly when. You know, maybe it'll be a half year late or a half year early. They don't know exactly, and there'll be maybe a few weeks with a lot of sunspots, and then relatively few. And you believe, and John Nelson believes, and many other researchers, that the planet positions will help us predict more precisely exactly when that peak is, and exactly how many sunspots and solar flares we will have,
Yeah.
right?
Actually, the 11-year cycles of the sunspots are the shortest one on the sun. The sun has 500-year cycles, 100-year cycles,
Okay.
and plus 11-year cycles, changing to 9.4 years up to 14 years.
Oh,
Actually,
it varies a lot.
yeah.
Okay.
But 11 years is almost 11.2 or sometimes 11.4. So all these cycles are very much related with human affairs,
Okay.
mundane events. And of course, what I'm saying, as some of the researchers on this field, is that planetary alignments are very much related with sunspot cycles and solar flares as well.
Wow.
And of course, geomagnetic storms. John Nelson predicted the geomagnetic storms with 85% accuracy.
85%.
85%.
Oh my God.
Just using these charts he prepared, as we do nowadays, heliocentric charts.
Wow. So if these discoveries have been made, John Nelson discovers these cycles on the sun and the geomagnetic storms, and this person who's in NASA and
Yeah.
Percy Seymour and yourself, we should be using this information. We should be evaluating it and testing it. And so one of the things that we're planning to do is to do exactly that. Because with our Kepler software, we can import, we will download from a website the sunspot activity. This is our plan, folks. Oner and I are going, we haven't done it yet, I'm going to download the data, and then we can graph the actual sunspot activity. And we'll graph the predicted based on whatever aspects you say. You tell me, like,
Yeah.
David, put in Jupiter, Saturn,
Oh,
opposition,
yeah.
and
Great.
give it 20 points, and give this 5 points, and
Yeah.
give it this big of an orb. Whatever you say, the program is set up to just take that, and then it will show us the actual values, the predicted values, and whether they correlate, what the correlation is.
Yeah.
So I've studied John Nelson's work a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like skeptical, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know about this, not
Yeah.
so sure. I've known you very well for a few years now, and I was surprised one day when you told me, because I know you're doing so many things, that you've studied this and it works. So I'm a little skeptical. I cannot wait for us to download that data
Yeah.
and see if this really works.
Yeah. Actually, he was using, as I said, heliocentric system. Of
Yes.
course, we can use geocentric as well, because his charts so much looking like our charts, and I'm using heliocentric astrology since the beginnings of 2008, just inspiring from his studies, and since the last 10 years, I have seen that many earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions coincides with the planetary alignments and solar bursts and sunspots and geomagnetic storms.
So, as an astrologer who's also very much a researcher. My thought is we can make several formulas. We can make a formula for sunspot activity. Maybe certain kinds of activities specifically affect weather.
Mhm.
So we can make different forecasts. We can do it mostly heliocentric.
Yeah.
We could try adding geocentric aspects or planets and zodiac signs
Yeah.
and see how that changes the prediction and see if it makes it better.
Mhm.
So we can play with this, change values, apply it to different things, and see if it really works. So one thing I'm excited about, bottom line, is number one, we can test the theory.
Yeah.
Number two, we can improve the theory. Because by having the software put everything together and giving us the correlation, we will see exactly what works and what does not work.
Great program, by the way.
Thank you.
Congratulations, bravo, really. And you were right. By the way, to clear this, what is heliocentric and geocentric, what they are different. Heavy moving planets, almost the same in both charts
Right.
as degrees. But fast moving planets, signs and degrees are changing and aspects to each other. So sometimes what we don't see in geocentric charts, we can see and catch them in heliocentric charts.
Okay.
This is why I'm using both systems, both heliocentric and geocentric. And
Wow.
I found out that, especially after 2011, 2012, around 2013, with Libra, Syrian revelation, Libyan revelation, and some revolutions and protests in Turkey,
Right.
some human affairs,
Right.
were very much related with the planetary alignments and solar bursts, solar flares. And Hurricane Irma, Japan earthquake,
Wow.
the last earthquake last year in Mexico, and some other volcanic eruptions, for example,
Wow.
were very much related with the planetary alignments, heliocentrically, and of course what is going on in the sun. So what I'm thinking and what I'm saying, this is not only the solar flares.
Right.
I mean, even we have less sunspots, even we have no solar bursts, we have all these effects on our magnetic field on Earth.
Right.
So planetary alignments that are affecting the sun
Yeah.
also affecting the Earth and the
Right.
magnetic field of the Earth, and of course people's magnetic fields.
Right.
So we are seeing the most important events changing in the market,
Right.
changing in the politics, etc.
But one of the amazing things about astrology is the number of things we can do with astrology. There are many areas of astrology that you cannot measure the results.
Mhm.
It's very difficult, we can see person's personality, their motivation, and it gives us an understanding of the meaning of our lives. And then there's, on the opposite end of the spectrum, a kind of astrology like this,
Yeah.
where we have very measurable results, a sunspot. I mean, it's something an astronomer can see, the change in the weather. So this is exciting to see if astrology can really predict something that's measurable, because really it has not completely been done. Some people say, oh, the Cochrane did it, and I've done some research which is impressive, and other people, but nothing really that's that consistent. And I think it's fun. I think it's fun to find out. And you're confident that you're on the road working with John Nelson and Percy Seymour, so many people. You're building on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
And that astrology works, and now I'm going to come in with a software, we'll put all this together. And I think we're thinking, within 6 months to 12 months, you and I will put this together,
You can predict.
and we'll see.
Because what the scientists are missing, if you ask me, the planetary alignments. Because most of the scientists are agree about the solar flares and their effects to Earth and geomagnetic storms and human affairs. even the psychology of mass in general,
Mm.
and the market and the politics, everything.
Right.
But what they are missing, the planetary alignments.
Okay.
What do they need? The planets' positions to each other.
Well, that's very interesting because I did not know that. Many of the scientists already
Mhm.
agree that the change in the sunspot activity does affect human affairs.
Human health.
Human
you
health.
know,
So they've
psychology,
established that.
Yeah.
But they're not able to predict very well when the sunspots will occur. Or let's say they could predict much better
Much better.
if they use the planetary positions.
Yeah.
So if you are right, and Percy Seymour and John Nelson, that this really works, this is so valuable. We'll be able to detect changes in weather and things that affect people's health. This is very practical and useful
Yeah.
information. This
Yeah.
is exciting.
Because we have to predict solar flares and what's happening on the sun, because when it all happens strongly, let's say X flares are very strong and they can cut the communication,
Right.
they can damage the satellites even, and also if earthquakes, volcanic eruptions and hurricanes, everything are related with the space weather
Mhm.
and what is going on in the sun, why not to predict them also using astrology as a player in that game?
Right.
Why not? Many planets in one side of the sun cause solar flares, according to my studies and according to studies some others.
Right.
So we will have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in one side of the sun, especially in 2019 and 2020. That means more solar flares.
Mm.
So it will be a good idea to predict that, maybe to warn before it happens. Sometimes it may be damaging.
Right.
And also we can use solar minimum and solar maximum phases of the sun, predicting financial up and down periods in financial astrology. Some are using it.
Right.
I'm using it also. We are in solar minimum phase,
Yeah.
and in solar minimum phases, investment in the market are getting lesser. People are not very eager to get risks.
Right.
When we are in solar maximum, people want to get risk.
Okay.
So in 2019 and 2020, we will have, geocentrically, we will have many planets in sign Capricorn,
Mm-hmm.
in Earth signs. Uranus will be there, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn will be in Capricorn, Neptune will be in Pisces, so we will have no superior planets in fire signs. That means people will not very eager
Right.
to get risks. And if we have less sunspots, even spotless days,
Right.
according to some scientists,
Yeah.
we will have very less sunspots.
Okay.
It will be very much
So
related to
the
financial
wonderful thing
affairs.
is we can take all of this astrological information, the aspects
Mhm.
that cause the solar activity to go up and down, the planets and zodiac signs, whatever we want to use, it's already in the software to just plug
Yeah.
those things in. And if you add something in, the graphs will change a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll see if they match the actual behavior. I mean, there's so many applications. How many sunspots are there? The effects on people's health, the
Yeah.
effect on the economy,
Yeah.
whether people are taking risks or not. So
Weather patterns.
the
weather
weather
patterns,
patterns. I mean,
yeah.
so many, like you were saying, the tornadoes, things
Yeah.
like this get triggered.
Yeah.
So if this is true, and I'm a little skeptical, and we're going to find out, we're going to download that daily activity, we're going to compare it to different things. First, what I want to see is, does it predict the sunspots?
Mhm.
Then if it does that, then of course it's going to affect these other things. Scientists have already confirmed that. So this is really like a whole new world, a whole new discipline that people have studied. One more thing I want to say about it. It takes years to study the literature. I've read a little bit of John Nelson, a little bit of this, but I haven't studied it thoroughly and looked at the charts and analyzed it for years like you have. And it takes years to get a feeling for it. And then you get a feeling this is either working or not working.
Yeah.
You're seeing that it works. You're very clear that it works. And I think that it's exciting that we can take this and evaluate it in such a way
Mhm.
that anybody can look at these graphs
Sure.
and confirm whether it's working or not. So within 6 to 12 months from now,
Yeah.
we will have the data downloaded.
Yeah.
We will be emailing each other back and forth, which we were already doing on other projects. And we're going to see if this works.
Yeah, and some scientists are saying that we will have less sunspots means we will have cooler weather patterns,
Oh.
which also we can predict by using geocentric astrology. We will have many planets in Capricorn, which is a cooler sign.
Okay.
So we will have eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn axis. So we will see if we have cooler weather, especially in the northern.
So you're
side.
expecting that around 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
we're going to see some cooling of the weather.
Yes.
A little bit of cooling. So the global warming
Most probably.
that we're all worried about
Yeah.
is going to get some help from the planet position.
We have to prepare about it.
Yeah.
Because there are some drought cycles of the sun as well.
Droughts.
And we are probably entering in one of them, drought cycles.
Okay.
And food prices may change because this is also very much related with agriculture.
Sure.
You know, all the food prices, food shortages,
Right.
this kind of things.
So you're expecting cooler and drier weather
Yeah.
might be coming. So the thing that that I want to emphasize, because these interviews have to do with discovery and research,
Yeah.
is of course astrologers for thousands of years have been predicting weather and whether there's droughts, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But now we're entering a phase of history where this can move mainstream. This is moving into the sciences
Yeah.
because we are in an information age.
Yeah.
We can evaluate these claims. We can see exactly how they work. We can also improve them more easily and see exactly how they're working. So I just think this is so exciting. And also I think a lot of astrologers think that people have moved away from research. But cutting edge research and discovery is happening.
Yeah.
It's happening here with the work you're doing. I'm going to collaborate with you
Yeah.
and bring some other people in. and see
One
what
last
happens.
thing.
Yes, please.
The first person who predicted very well of crop prices was not an economist, was William Herschel.
Oh.
Was an astronomer.
Well,
He predicted very well crop, prices.
William Herschel.
Just relying on sunspot counts.
Wow.
Yeah, because when we have less sunspot counts, we have less crops.
Yeah.
Then the prices up.
So he's an amazing astronomer. He's the fellow who discovered Uranus,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he also correlated sunspot activity to agriculture, which of course affects all of us.
Yeah.
So many exciting
Yeah.
people
Very exciting.
involved in this history. So just to summarize, it's just an honor for all of us to experience what Oner is doing with this cutting edge research in sunspots. The idea has been floating around. People have been making claims. Now we're at a point where we're going to really test and evaluate and develop this. And if Oner is right and we confirm, I'm going to bring this to my colleagues at the university and I'm going to say, here it is, here's the data.
Wow.
and we're on our way. So it's exciting. Okay, any last things?
No, this was the last thing. Just keep an eye on 2020
Okay.
about financial things and about all the weather patterns
Okay.
and global cooling. If you're right, we will see some changes.
Okay. Okay, my friends, it's just wonderful to be here. I hope that gives you some insight into the cutting edge research that's going on here in Istanbul with Oner Doser and how different colleagues are coming together to work together to build this research. We're going to have some more news on what we're doing within the next year as we continue the research and find out if these formulas really work. Thanks for watching. God bless. Namaste.